Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be another story time video, and I am going to be talking all about my postpartum hemorrhage. I'm going to start this video off by saying that I think I had a bad uterus. My second pregnancy I did a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after C-section, and when that happened I hemorrhaged as well. My uterus tore in a bunch of places, and that time I almost bled to death too. And then 6 months later I got pregnant with Jack. So I think this is all due to having a bad uterus, but I will be seeing a hematologist to see if it is something else like a bleeding disorder. I'm going to try to tell this story pretty quick without skipping any details, but I do want to mention that some of the information is a little bit graphic, so just a warning that I might go into a bit of detail here. November 24th, 2015 was when I had my postpartum hemorrhage. I was 2 weeks postpartum. It was 1 o'clock in the morning and Jack woke up for his feeding. After I fed him, he fell asleep in my arms, and then I got up to put him back into his crib. After I put him in the crib, I felt this big gush. And at that time, I wasn't concerned. I was just like, I wonder what that was. So I walked to the bathroom, and then I pulled down my pants, and there was blood everywhere. It was covering my underwear and my pants. I sat down on the toilet and noticed that it was still pouring out, so I put a thick towel in between my legs and I called Nick, who was sleeping at the time. Usually Nick is a really deep sleeper, but it only took me one time calling his name to wake him up. So I told him that I was bleeding and I need him to get my mom right away. My mom came and she looked and she said, "Oh my God, you're hemorrhaging," and she called 911. So while she was on the phone with 911, I was sitting on the toilet and I could still feel the blood wanting to come out, but like I said, I had a big towel there to catch all the blood, and I could also feel blood clots trying to push their way out of my body, which really scared me. I started to pray because I don't know if you've ever hemorrhaged before or if you have seen a lot of blood, but to me that was a lot of blood and I really thought I was going to die. So I was praying to God for, to forgive me for all my sins, and I also prayed that, He would keep me alive, that I wouldn't die. It took about 5 minutes for the ambulance to get to my house, and they came in and they started asking you a bunch of questions, and it was really awkward because it was 2 male paramedics and a female paramedic, and I'm just sitting there in a t-shirt and, a towel in between my legs. So after they asked me all these questions and got all the information they needed, they loaded me onto a stretcher and started taking me out to the ambulance. And I was just in a t-shirt, no pants, and it was -30 outside and snowing, so I was freezing. We got into the ambulance and they tried 3 times to get the IV into my arm, but 2 of the paramedics were trainees, so they ended up getting the other guy to give me the IV, and that 4th attempt actually worked. I live about 5 minutes away from the hospital, so it didn't take long to get there, but it was really annoying me because they would stop at every red light and they didn't have their sirens on. When we got to the hospital, we stayed at the emergency entrance for about 5 minutes while they did more paperwork and got me my wristbands and everything. And the whole time I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, can we please just hurry this up? Like, I'm bleeding and I could still feel blood clots trying to push their way out. If I took the towel away from my body for just like a few seconds to look and see if I was still bleeding and how much blood there was, you would just see it like pour out. They put me into a room where 2 more nurses came in to talk to me and just go over all my information, and I'm just telling her, listen, I'm still bleeding, there's blood clots, my toes are numb, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And she's like, okay, let me take a look, and she pulls the towel back and she's like, yeah, you're still bleeding. And I'm like, I know. And then finally the doctor comes in and he's like, we gotta rush you to surgery right away. He rushed me into the operating room, and the room was filled with doctors and nurses. The doctor wanted to see where I was bleeding, why I was bleeding, if he could stop the bleeding. And this is where it's going to get a little graphic, guys. So if you want to fast forward or stop the video, then now's the time to do it. First, he did an ultrasound to try to see where the bleeding was and what it was, but he couldn't really see anything. So then he had to do an internal exam, and that was super painful. He had to pretty much use his whole hand and a bit to kind of feel around the area, and at this point I had no medication. This was like almost as painful as full-on labor. Yeah, so he was doing that, and he was putting gauze in there to try to stop the bleeding, but that wasn't working. While all this was happening, there was nurses putting needles into me. I needed a breathing mask because I couldn't breathe. Not being able to breathe is the scariest thing ever. I don't know if you've ever had that issue or if you've ever like been drowning or something, but not being able to catch your breath is really hard and really scary. Even with the breathing mask on, I had to really try to focus hard on breathing. I was throwing up. They were constantly lifting me up to change the blankets underneath me because there was so much blood. I lost so much blood that they needed to give me a full blood transfusion. I almost died. After a while, he couldn't stop the bleeding, so they decided that the only way to save my life was to take my uterus. So they got me to sign a permission form saying that yes, you can take my uterus. After I signed the papers, that is when they brought me to a different operating room. They put a huge needle into my hand. I think it was like my wrist or something, and that hurt so bad. I think it was like a 20 gauge needle, and then they put a mask on me to get me to fall asleep. The next thing I remember is waking up in the recovery room. I felt really sick and I had this huge needle in my neck. I actually have a picture of that, which I will insert right now. In the recovery, all I did was lay there. I had to stay there for 2 hours. I was really groggy and drowsy, so they brought me into my hospital room and I went to sleep. And I woke up in the morning and my first visitors were my father-in-law and my brother-in-law. After that, I stayed in the hospital for about 4 days, I think. My hematology levels were really low, so I was really dizzy and really weak. I almost had to get another blood transfusion because my hemo levels were not going up. But after the hospital stay, they started going up. I'm still anemic. I don't take my iron pills, which I should. And on August 18th, I will be going to see a hematologist to go over my blood work to see if I have some sort of bleeding condition or if this was just something due to my uterus. I am really lucky. I have been blessed with 3 beautiful kids, and I kind of think of Jack as a miracle. I had him at 36 weeks, and it got me thinking, like, what if I had still been pregnant with him till full term? Would this still have happened? So I've almost died twice within 3 years, I believe, which is really scary, and I'm super grateful to be alive. I really wanted more kids, but I am super grateful and happy for the ones that I do have. It still sucks thinking that I can't have any more, but like I said, I am grateful for the ones that I have. The only good thing about having a hysterectomy is you don't get any more periods. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I probably did not go through as much detail as I could have, but I don't know. I'm really bad at telling stories. I always forget parts or miss parts. Anyways, give this video a like. You will see me in my next video. Bye.